Today is July 10th, 2018. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Jim Reali in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
In Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago. And when's your birthday?
15 April 1948.
1948. Who is your father?
Charles Reali.
Okay. And your mother?
Beatrice Reali.
What was her maiden name?
Myers.
Myers.
Meyers.
You go through school in Chicago?
I went to school in the suburbs in Niles and Glenview, Illinois.
Okay. You graduated high school what year?
1966.
1966. Who was your favorite teacher?
A guy named Jim Myers. He was the basketball coach.
Okay. You play sports in high school?
Yes.
What'd you play?
I was on the track team. I was the captain of the rifle team. And then just some other, mostly the track team.
Okay.
I was too small for football.
What'd you do after high school?
Went to college.
Where'd you go?
To the University of Illinois for 3 semesters, year and a half.
What'd you study?
Just general courses.
Okay. Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted
And when did you enlist?
in 7 November 1967.
1967. And you enlisted in the
Marines.
Marines. Why did you join the Marines over the Army or the Navy or the Air Force?
I joined because my dad was a Marine. Even though he was against me going in as enlisted, he was very upset and carries that 50 years later. He's still upset about it.
Where'd you go for your boot camp?
San Diego, California.
Tell me about boot camp.
Boot camp was a labyrinth of trying to stay out of trouble and not get hurt. That was the only thing. He says, just go through and get through and not get hurt and get sent back. We had a lot of people hurt, a lot of people thrown out. FBI came and got a lot of people out. We started with like 70 some and graduated with 50 some. We lost 20 plus recruits.
What type of training did you have in boot camp?
Everything you imagine, from climbing ropes to swimming. Really emphasized swimming because they thought we might be aboard ships going to Vietnam, which it got so bad they flew us to Vietnam. And a lot of running, a lot of carrying ammo cans, and lots of two-man doing fireman's carries, and a lot of calisthenics, 2 weeks of rifle shooting. And it just continued on in that frame. A lot of historical, a lot of studying. They were really big on the old people who have brought a lot of honor to the Marine Corps over the period of the course of 150 years at that time.
What's your most vivid memory of boot camp?
Graduating. I graduated first out of boot camp and never told my mom or dad until I walked around the corner at the outdoor theater and I was in my dress blues and everybody else was in greens. So that was pretty exciting. No, my best memory is making firing expert at the range when no one else was doing very well at all.
What rifle did you train with?
M14.
M14. How long did boot camp last?
Approximately 10 weeks.
Okay.
We went from December the 4th till Valentine's Day. That was easy to remember. February 14th, 1968.
After boot camp, where'd you go?
Went to advanced infantry training.
And that was located where?
That was at Camp Pendleton. I was in San Diego and went to Orange County to Camp Pendleton and climbed up and down the hills for a month.
How did AIT compare with basic, with boot camp?
Oh, totally different. A lot of harassment. They got away with a lot more. The instructors, they were very, very devious. They thought everybody was gonna, you don't listen to what I'm saying, you're gonna die in Vietnam type thing. Poor attitude. A lot of them were rejects that never made it to Vietnam. That's what made it even worse. And so we encountered my old buddy from boot camp and myself encountered a lot of pushback from that. A lot of strange stuff that, even though we got a lot of training, it was like putting 5 pounds in 1 pound bag, you know.
Now, was that your AIT geared toward Vietnam?
Yes. But there was still another, what they called, later on after I went through a couple different schools, you still had to go to a 2 to 3 week Vietnam type oriented, basically another AIT, but more geared toward Vietnam. The people that were there were going on the airplane.
Yeah.
So it was a staging, they called it.
Your AIT lasted how long?
With the interruption, about 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. From Camp Pendleton, where'd you go?
Went home for 20 days and went right back to Camp Pendleton. I went to artillery school. I was picked as a MOS of 0844, which is I was a fire directional control person, FDC, fire directional control. I read all the maps, did all the compass work, set up the whole firing site. We learned how to use the T6 theodolite, and do all the algorithms and all the math to make the guns fire where they were supposed to. That was a very, very difficult school. The dropout rate was humongous. But that helped me later on, which was unbelievable, with all the mapping and so forth, and calling fire missions later on in Vietnam where no one knew how to do that.
And when did you get your orders for Vietnam?
In August of 68.
When you got your orders, what did you think?
I didn't think anything of it because what we were doing at Pendleton was worthless, so it was just a way out. But I didn't actually go to Vietnam as an artilleryman. I went as a scout. I went from Pendleton, I got on a plane. They put me on a plane to San Antonio, Texas. And I became a dog handler. I was at Walk Point at night, and we trained at night, and it was probably the best. It was 12-week long school, and I was actually graduated as a air policeman / sentry dog handler, and that kind of stuck with me my whole first part of my career. I actually went to Vietnam as a dog handler. I was an infantry dog handler.
Where were you based in San Antonio?
At Lackland Air Force Base.
Okay. Tell me about going to Vietnam.
It was a little strange because one of the pilots, I remember getting up, it wasn't a couple hours after we left Hawaii. We got to stop in Hawaii after leaving in the middle of the night from San Bernardino. They bused us from Camp Pendleton to San Bernardino, the old Air Force base there. And we got on a United 727. I said, That's really strange. That's a very short-legged airplane to be flying all the way to Vietnam. Well, we made a lot of stops. And so got on the airplane. Everybody, of course, went to sleep. And I was so spun up I wasn't sleeping. I was thinking about stuff. So I went to up walking around and kind of, in those days they didn't close the cockpit at all. They could, but they didn't on those long flights. And so I kind of peeked my head in. Come on in, I got from one of the pilots. So we started talking. It was my dad's old wingman from Korea. He said, "Don't you ever tell your father I flew you to Vietnam. He'd kill me." Yeah, he was his old buddy, old captain from Korea, who was United Airlines captain. He was captain of the airplane, and flown tremendous amount of hours. And so he was taking us these contract flights to Vietnam.
Where'd you land in Vietnam?
We landed in Da Nang.
Da Nang.
Yes.
You called the date?
Yeah, it was early November. It was exactly 1 year to the day. It was around the 7th when I joined the Marines.
When you first landed in Vietnam, what was your reaction?
It was early in the morning, and it was plenty scary because all the flares going up, and you could hear the firing. You could hear the big old. We had not far from Da Nang they had 175s and 155s. You could hear those son of guns go off. It would shake the whole world. And just the back blast was enough to get back on the airplane and want to go home. But go ahead.
Have you been assigned to a unit?
Yes.
What unit were you assigned to?
3rd MP Battalion. That's where the scout dogs and the sentry dogs had their kennels, which was right outside of Da Nang.
Were you a separate unit or
Yes.
attached to a division?
Oh, we were part of the division. We were 1st Marine Division.
1st Marine Division. So where were you based in Vietnam?
My first assignment was really fantastic. I was at night. I worked from dusk to dawn. I was the sentry that protected the TV and radio station up on Monkey Mountain outside Da Nang. That was the coolest duty you could ever hope for. That first month, they treated me like I was King Richard or something. Fed the dog, had a great place to sleep, and they just did not have any. The Army did not have any support troops. It was a combined unit of Army, Navy, Air Force, and there was Marines there too. But they had no. It was the strangest thing that they had no support in the way of protection. So I was the first line of protection. So I never realized how dangerous it could have been because we were still too new to be really scared. The thing we were mostly scared about is there was these rock apes that lived up in Monkey Mountain. That's why it was called Monkey Mountain. These guys were not monkeys; they were actually apes. They were very dangerous, but also very funny. You could roll them a fairly round stone, and they would actually throw it back to you and stuff if you see them. They were very nocturnal, but very family oriented. They actually would hold the baby's hand as they were walking through. They would walk on their back legs. It was really. There's a big name for them, but I don't remember what it is.
Now, how large of an area did you have to patrol when you were?
Yeah, it was a pretty good size area, and it was dense. It was the radio station, TV station, so I was outside the fence, not inside the fence, and so it had to be a quarter mile at least, maybe a half mile away all the way around. It was really dark, and really at times our biggest threat was there was in the area there, at that time, the VC and the sappers and all that stuff was pretty well dying out. It was the NVA regulars that we encountered later on. And that was when I went with the infantry for so many months. So one day they came and got me, my NCOIC, and said, "Oh, you're going out to the 7th Marines." Well, that was hallelujah. Oh my God, what the heck's going to happen now? And that was the day I went that was a month later from the time I went. It was a year at that time. It was around December the 4th of 1968.
Where'd you go?
Out in the boondocks, out south and east of Da Nang, an area called, there's a lot of different names, Charlie Ridge, Oklahoma, that came later, but it was a bunch of different slang for that area. It was the Bong Song region of that province, and that was one of the drop-off points for all the NVA coming off the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They used to come down Charlie Ridge and shoot these unguided missiles into rockets into 122 millimeter Russian rockets. They used to fire into Da Nang because we were higher than Da Nang because Da Nang being right on the coast, and they would lob them right into they would set up these mud firing, they build these mud platforms and carry a car battery and all sorts of strange stuff and light those things off, and you could see them whooshing through what we were in for that period of time was called the rocket belt. And our job was every night, I mean almost every night, rains. It didn't snow, but it sure got plenty cold in the monsoons. Every night we went on patrol looking for those rockets and those NVA carrying those. And these guys had helmets and nice sidearms, and we actually captured a warrant officer at one point and a paymaster. We did get the paymaster one night. We were always in skirmishes with those guys. Chased them all over the place. I mean, all over the place.
Ever get the rockets?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We got tons of stuff.
Now, do you have any contact with the local people in that area?
Yes. Once we get a little rest, we go out on what we call there's a bunch of names. They're med caps. We would take a couple of our corpsmen, Navy corpsmen, and go out to the villages and give the little kids shots. They'd play with the dog, and we'd walk around and make sure they weren't. They had plenty of rice, but hiding. There was a few VC left. They'd shoot at us every so often, and we used to clear the roads with the engineers. I can actually show you a picture of that. I have it right behind you, Joe. If you want to just stop the camera.
Sure.
How we doing?
Oh, no, fine. I'm getting a little... Okay.
Okay, so we're on rocket duty. And we get orders to come down to start packing our stuff. We're going on an operation. 7 battalion operation. Into the mountains, chase them down the base camps. Unheard of. They'd never been up that way. 7 battalions. 3 battalions from the 7th Marines, and then a couple other stray battalions, and 1 Vietnamese battalion. Plus we got our Kit Carson with us. Kit Carson being our Vietnamese interpreter that I used a lot. So before that started, but we used to do these med caps. I'll back up just a little bit. And so every so often we'd end up with a spider hole, someone taking a shot at us. So the dog smelled one day, alerted, and kind of sat down and almost sat down on top of the guy. He was in the spider hole. That's my wife. And we got a lot of that for a while, and they blew up one of our, one day the VC came, and as we were doing the med cap, they did set a box mine, wired a box mine to underneath so as soon as we moved one of the big amphibious vehicles, that thing burned for 3 days, blew everybody off the top of the house. Luckily,
box mine?
Big box mine.
What's a box mine?
A box mine is sometimes what they used was non-expended artillery rounds, or they made it up with Soviet era plastic explosives and so forth, and then they just detonated it. Wire detonated. They hit it off in the bushes. And as it was an old-fashioned now IED. So that's a whole different story. So the med caps, they used to call them carnivals and all sorts of names for going out there and walking around and everything, but we were very, very, very concerned about the local population, because it was a good warning system for us. We didn't beat them up too bad, and we didn't certainly burn the villages down or anything. We weren't into that type of stuff. We had a company commander who was a really great guy, and he wanted us to just do our job. We did.
And when we went to the village, how can you tell the friendlies from the VC?
You can't. But if they were carrying a rifle, we'd deal with it. Yeah. The dog was very sensitive to the VC. They basically smelled differently because they had been firing weapons and so forth. So they were a lot dirtier too than the locals.
What was your dog's name?
Carrie.
Carrie.
So Carrie, he was a character. At night, you couldn't get near him at all, other than myself. If you got closer than 7 feet, you got bit. He was very protective. And one day we were on the road clearing. A lot of this stuff, I have to tell you, Joe, is quite fresh. I just came back from Vietnam last year. So I saw a lot of stuff that I hadn't seen in 40-some years. So I went to Vietnam, I went to Da Nang and went over all the way above the DMZ. And so that's why it's a little fresher than, I don't have to stretch, and I'm leaving out so much, but it's okay. So we'd run into the VC occasionally, and the dog, we were on a mine clearing. That one road was the main road to back into Da Nang.
Is that Highway 1?
No, it was a parallel. Okay. It was the dirt road. Highway 1 actually was paved, most of it, not all of it, most of it. This was kind of a dirt road, but it was really well maintained. And the buses used to run on there and so forth. Well, the buses used to get anxious, and they tried to get around us while we were trying to clear the mines. They used to put the mines in the culverts, in the water culverts. They had these great big huge culverts that were actually so big that I could actually squat down a little bit, and the dog and I could walk through them, which we did. He was on a big long leash, so if we were going to let something was going to go, if they were going to try to detonate something on us, maybe one of us lived through it, I don't know. But they never tried. We've had some incidents. One day, the bus came by, and the dog was fairly close to me, like in that, with the short leash on, but the long leash was there too. I would just drop the short leash, and then he could go out almost 50 feet, which was fine. And someone threw a bottle or a can at him, something. And so these buses were modified. They're like old school buses, but they had they're like the old trains that had a back end, like a patio, a mezzanine on the back side. And so the guy had thrown out the window, but he wanted to see the reaction of trying to kill the dog. And he didn't have any luck killing the dog because the dog almost killed him. The dog jumped up like he was catching a frisbee and pulled the guy off the back of the bus. The dog weighed 110 pounds.
Yes.
He had a mouth on him, looked like a crocodile.
German Shepherd.
German Shepherd. He jumped up there and grabbed that guy, and he knew who did it, and threw him in the dirt, threw him right on the road, and commenced to bite on him. So I had to reel him in. I had to, all that leash out. Man, did we get in trouble. Whoa. I mean, I had every general calling from 3 provinces. Vietnamese, 2 American generals, 1 colonel, the battalion commander. The battalion commander thought it was quite funny, but he couldn't tell me that at the time until he saw me. But over the radio they were giving me, oh my God. Had a lot of trouble over that. But we moved on. So
Did the guy get in trouble for throwing the bottle off the bus?
Oh, I don't know. He got enough dog bites that I didn't much care at that point. Dog must have bit him 10 times. He rolled him over and kept biting him. That was great. You don't throw bottles at beautiful dogs, working dogs. So this continued for almost 6 months, this rocket, and we really put a dent in there. But they were doing some damage too. I remember they sank a ship in Da Nang Harbor one day, had all our dog food on there. Yeah, they didn't know what was on there, but they got the merchant ship. It was commercial merchant ships, and sank the doggone merchant
How'd they
ship.
sink it?
The rocket hit. They got it just by chance one night. Oh, you should have seen how they used to light up Da Nang with those rockets. It was like 4th of July. So we had a lot of patrols and a lot of incidents. Nothing tremendous until Tet. We had Tet 2. This is January, February of 1969. So it wasn't as bad, but it was plenty. They got pretty feisty there for a while.
What happened during that?
Yeah, they had a lot of little incidents, but they had some heavy. Well, we ended up having to bring in the fighter planes and so forth. We had A4 Skyhawks dropping very big bombs, 250-pound bombs, almost right on our positions. As they were a whole bunch. It was the NVA. They had wheeled 12.7 50 cals shooting at us, and they were armed to the teeth. We didn't have anything that movable. At the time, we had very little support other than what we carried. We didn't have any Amtracs or APCs or anything like that we could carry a 50 or. So we lost a few people, which was unfortunate, and kept losing every so often with these night ambushes and stuff. It was not real good. So end of March, first part of April rolled around. So I had been with them a lot of months by then, and I might add I went to the infantry. I was a PFC. By now I was a E4 corporal. I kept just getting promoted. I never even saw the people. They kept, every so often I'd get some mail, and there'd be a note in there. Whoever was going to Da Nang in the Jeep, which was risky in itself, would bring back mail, occasionally for me. They stopped by the compound. And so I kept getting promoted. And so in the field it didn't mean a thing, but later on it did. So we got orders to start packing for this operation. And of all things, the operation's name was Oklahoma Hills. I'll be damned, I said. And to this day, I don't know who named that operation. Those mountains in that part of the world became Oklahoma hills, and they were far from hills. They were.
Now, was that in the Central Highlands or?
No, it was right there at Charlie Ridge. If
Okay.
you,
Yeah,
if
south
you,
of Denang.
yeah, and the big mountains and cold mountains. I mean, we saw it sleet up there. It was so, those mountains were high. And so we went chasing the MVA in their base camps, and we sure found them. We found we lost a lot of people too.
Now, when you went out on these missions, how long would you be out?
This one we were out a long time. From the end of March until May something, almost end of May.
Now, would you spend the night out there on these?
Yes.
What kind of position did you set up at night?
Just a hasty perimeter, facing in, facing out. And we never had any issues. They were daytime fighters. They were scared of the dark as much as we were some nights. The starlight scopes weren't very good, so we had a couple of those. If someone wanted to carry the darn thing, it was so heavy, we'd take it out on patrol. But I remember looking through the stars, they said, "Hey, Dogman." I didn't have a name. I was Dogman. "Hey, Dogman, look through this." And I looked through it, and there was like 11 or 15 NVA walking across the horizon. I said, "Well, shut up and get out." They outnumbered us 2-1. We weren't going to mess with them. But we got up there in the mountains and they were all built. They had built a lot of defensive positions. And they had all big, heavy logs, huge trees. It was triple canopy. It was the real thing. It was everything everybody read about in other parts of the country, but that part hadn't been explored much, or any operations in that area. So if you Google that, oh my God, it goes on and some more, all the stuff that went on. And so we got in some pretty husky firefights. And I lost my dog on that operation. I was wounded. We got a whole bunch of people wounded, and not as much out of our company, but a lot of people were killed on the operation because of these defensive positions, walking into these huge ambushes. They had heavy weapons, and we did not able to carry anything like that. And it was impossible to get any helicopter or fixed wing support because it was just so dense. So we just duked it out, step at a time, and so it was really an interesting time. So during that operation, I was put on a hospital ship. I was pretty banged up for lots of reasons. I was shot while I was, stupid me, throwing hand grenades that they were throwing at us. We didn't even have any left. They were throwing hand grenades at us, and we were throwing them back at them. And so,
how do you throw a hand grenade back?
You roll it, let it roll up to you, and give it a good turn before it blows up. So I had one that it had happened a couple times. This one looked a little too close, wounded me and the dog and everybody around us and everything. But we beat the heck out of them, assaulted this position and so forth. It was okay. We walked away. We were a little beat up, but you were walking. You were fighting. You weren't walking. You were dead. Because by the time to get out of there, it was almost impossible.
You work with the mountain yards?
Yes. Later on, I did.
Okay.
The story continues for years in Southeast Asia, but some of it I still can't talk about till this day. So, but I lived in Thailand for a while after that's why I was with the Army. We took a whole training operation to Chiang Rai and everything that's been in the news. I've been in those caves very interesting.
When you were in Denang at your base camp, what type of quarters did you have?
Not too bad. We built them. They were burned down in the course of me being on the hospital ship. They got a fire going at the ammunition dump and blew up half of that part of the town. It blew up our whole compound. So we had newer stuff when I came back. I slept at my bunk and stuff was. I lived at the kennel because I was made the kennel NCO after I didn't have a permit dog, but I had some great dogs, and I'll tell you about the dog in a second. I stayed on the hospital ship. We went to the Philippines and stuff. Yeah, I healed up, and we were rebuilding the whole compound. There were barracks They were the army helped us, and the Seabees, the Navy, and the Korean Seabees helped us rebuild the kennel. There was a big piece of shrapnel all over the place. The place was leveled. So they built these barracks that were off the ground because of the monsoons and stuff. So they weren't bad. There was cots, and we had showers and heads and so forth. It wasn't too bad. They really did a good job of fixing the kennel, and I stayed. I don't know how they decided to do that, but one day when I was walking the dogs, they said, "Oh, Corporal Reali, you're now the kennel NCO." I said, "I thought I was going back in the field." "No, you can't go back to the field." So why not? "We can't tell you." Okay. They'll come to find out by the time I got back, I had been awarded a Silver Star for actions on Oklahoma Hills.
How many dogs do you have in the kennel?
We were losing them fast. I had about 50 to 60 scout dogs. Had maybe about the same, maybe a little less. The British had brought a virus from Malaysia. They had tracker dog training. The Brits had tracker dog training, and we had some dogs there training also. And we brought back this contagious virus that we couldn't seem to stop, even though we scrubbed and brushed and tried to sterilize everything. We couldn't seem to stop it. We lost a lot of dogs. We were losing 2 or 3 a week, and it just continued on. There was a lot of burying, a lot of dogs. It was really upsetting. We can't stop it. So we couldn't stop it at all. So
What about booby traps?
no, we had a lot of, but in our area they were transiting as much as we were, so we were in an area where there really wasn't any. You found booby traps and mines and all sorts of crazy, the famous bungee sticks and all that stuff. You found areas that didn't get traveled too much, and we weren't much for getting out. We stayed off the trails. You stay off the trails, you stay out of the booby traps. So we didn't go down the easy way. We'd go down the hard way or find a new way. That's why I was a scout. I led the platoon, either squad or platoon, almost every night, and we would not take those on. We had an occasional one, but nothing like other parts of the country where they were there all the time and huge.
Now, when you went out, what did you carry on your person?
I carried a kind of I had an army butt pack that had some food in it. Carried a lot of water for the dog. Daytime was different from nighttime. We dressed differently, and at night we wore more clothes because it got cooler and wetter. It rained a lot. We were wet more than we were dry, as you remember.
What are the monsoons?
Monsoons were really strange because they came a lot earlier, more recently. They were later. They came later, and when they came, they really came heavy. I spent, even after I left Vietnam, almost 14 months later, I stayed in Okinawa for almost a month because the monsoons were so bad they couldn't even land an airplane. We stayed another almost whole month just waiting to get out of there. We thought we'd never get out of there. Ruined all everything was wet. Everything we owned was wet. To get just our uniforms pressed and clean, and just hope that it quit raining long enough so we could get on an airplane. It was pretty tough. When I went back to, so I took care of the kennel. The kennel was quite a deal.
Where was the kennel located?
In the battalion area, next to the POW camp.
That was at
in Da Nang.
Da Nang, okay.
Yes. And so we had two separate kennels, a sentry dog and the scout dog. We were blending in as we spoke because we were so short-handed. We lost a lot of handlers, and Army lost a lot of handlers. Everybody lost a lot of handlers. Walking out there in front was a risky business. So,
walking points?
Walk point. That's all I ever did. I never walked any place but point. A couple times, every time I got further back than 2, there was always issues. So it was one of the things that happened to me that was very unusual. While I was the kennel NCO, in the middle of the night, I had a PRC 25 at the kennel, and because the LZ was right near my kennel, so occasionally we would fly out, and so radio was squawking like heck, and so it was like 3 o'clock. It woke me up, dead asleep. 2 things that was in July, because in August we almost got overrun right through the valley. On the back side, they tried to come through the wire, and that had all the office clerks just scared to death. We got in a big old firefight. But it was probably after that. They brought a helicopter in to take me to First Recon, a position out in the middle of nowhere. I never to this day know exactly where we were. And the dog handler had been killed. But the dog was perfectly alive. The dog's name was Baron. And so Baron was ready to eat. Baron would bite his own handler. So this dog was not a dog. I kept telling my friend, don't take this dog to the field. I don't like this dog. It does not give me a warm, fuzzy feeling about this dog. Oh no, he'll be all right. So we trained with him some more, see what he was going to do. He was just inconsistent. So, in the middle of the night, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and we land on this mountaintop, and there's my friend from Guam, Guamanese guy, dead as dead could be, and the dog is still alive, but he's still attached. At night, we wore a safety leash, so it was a doubled up leash. So if you fell or something, the dog would not be loose. And he was biting everybody. So finally I took my muzzle and never calmed him down. I just had him, when he was going to bite me, I slid the muzzle right out of his face. He was ready to bite me too, and he knew me as well as...
The handler was dead?
Handler was dead. So I grabbed Baron, and of all times they start taking fire. I mean, just awful fire. And so the helicopter is right on the edge of the mountain. We're way up, and it's way down to the bottom. I can't even see the bottom. And it's just getting light, and we're taking fire. And the guy said, we're going with you or without you. So I grabbed my Guam buddy and throw him over my shoulder, and the dog is on my left like it's supposed to be, and we run toward the helicopter. a helicopter takes off. And I'm in midair with my deceased buddy on my back, and the dog is already on the ramp of the helicopter. The dog pulls me into the helicopter. For that moment, I was in midair. There was the 7-foot leash, the dog is on the ramp, I'm on the ground, and all of a sudden, we're all flying together, and I'm not feeling a thing. We're just getting dragged. We all got on the helicopter, flew home, flew to First Med.
Was it Huey?
No, it was a CH-46,
Okay.
a Frog.
Yeah.
That's the damnest thing, and to this day I still wonder how we did that. We don't know how we did that. It was dark, we couldn't really see. Better that I didn't see. But I brought him home. It's just a shame that he was a really good guy. He was one of our better dog handlers. And,
What was his name?
I can't tell you.
Yeah.
It's still under investigation. It's just a shame. Because it was a friendly fire incident. So we got to August, and so it was just the rain, just a lot of going-ons with losing all the dogs and keeping up with all their shots and the in and out of the handlers, and the turnover and the non-replacement. We got really short of handlers. We had too many dogs and not enough handlers. It was normal stuff. So I made sergeant and got on the plane and went home. But I didn't go back to the Marines. I went to the Army for 3 years. I was at Fort Benning. Went through airborne school.
You transferred to the Army?
No, I was TDY to the Army to train their dogs.
Okay. You
'Cause
trained
they didn't-
Army. Okay.
I was training Army dogs.
Yes. Okay.
Marine Corps never had dogs. They would get them from the Air Force or get them from the Army. So we had Marine students at Fort Benning. Airborne school, Ranger school, advanced officers course, and the advanced infantry officers course, and the scout dogs, and then later on mine and booby trap dogs. That's where we actually started a whole new program for the IEDs of they were still kicking everybody's butt.
Now, when did you leave Vietnam?
I left Vietnam the first time in November of 1969. That was exactly 2 years from the time I went in the Marines. And unbeknownst to me, in a time of transit and so forth, when I left Camp Lejeune, I had to report into Camp Lejeune just to get my paperwork and everything squared away and my orders endorsed before I went off to Fort Benning. Drove off to Fort Benning, Columbus, Georgia, from Jacksonville, North Carolina. I was promoted again because I was now a staff NCO. I was promoted to E6. So I had less than 2 years in when I made E6. A lot of stuff because of the dogs and being out with the people I was out with and so forth. They wrote some unbelievable recommendations, and so I was promoted again, which didn't sit well for the people that were at Benning waiting for this new staff NCO to show up. And they already had been all sergeants when I was a Lance Corporal, E3 in Vietnam. They were all still sergeants, and none of them made staff sergeants. So it really made some hard feelings, but I didn't care. Too bad. And we moved on, and I didn't like it. That's too bad. I asked for the job, I didn't know that all the stuff involved in it. So I stayed at Fort Benning until I got out the first time. And I got out on a Friday, and I started school on the next week, Wednesday, at Auburn University. In the course of being at Fort Benning, I was TDY to Thailand for a long period of time, training 15 dogs for the Royal Thai Marines. And I spent all that time. We took 5 tracker dogs, 5 scout dogs, and 5 mine and booby trap dogs. We trained them helicopter operations, rappelling, using the dogs in a fixed area, built up area, and along the border. They were getting infiltrated by the Pathet Lao, the Laotian.
Now, when did you go to Thailand?
I went to Thailand in 1971.
71.
I was at Fort Benning from 70, because 69 when the year ended and so forth.
Okay.
I was 2 years at Fort Benning.
Okay.
And then I started, went to Thailand. That was the end of my. I had already been to airborne school, already been up in the Dahlonega, up to the Ranger School, and worked with those guys on how deploying dogs. So I was teaching the Rangers how to properly deploy the dogs if they got a handler and dog team. So it was a lot of stuff.
Where are you based in Thailand?
Chiang Mai,
Chiang Mai.
all the way up. This is my wife. That's Joe. And so this was a project that had been come about by the Queen of Thailand, King and Queen of Thailand. She was from Chicago. He had been trained and gone to school in Switzerland. He just passed away. We had a lot of contact with the King and Queen. Mac Thai had arranged for us to work with them as much as we could, for them to understand the program. They were underwriting it and paying all their troops and so forth. And they took us all over, and we trained 6 days a week. We trained them good. And years later, I went back in '99 and saw my old Thai major, who was our boss, and he had become a 2 or 3 star general and had been the mayor of Chiang Mai. A really great guy, Major Sakone. And we were up in an area called Mai Rim, which is on the way to Chiang Rai. And it was a pretty hot area. There was a lot of activity going on.
You go back to Vietnam?
We did, just to check on some of the Army people that we had sent with the Mayan booby trap dogs. It was not a good time. It was not enough support. It was a very bad time, actually. It was really, really nerve-wracking.
Was Vietnam being drawn down at that time?
Yes. Yes, it was. And it was a very eerie feeling to see all these ghost camps and so forth. And,
why were we in Vietnam?
well, I have been reading. I have a library of books that probably would put the library to shame. And it started in 1948 when Truman did not want to deal with, actually it started earlier. Roosevelt did not want to deal with Indochina, and it just continued to build up, and it took all the way to Eisenhower to send Army advisors to. It wasn't Kennedy who really pushed until later, and then Johnson, of course. I actually met President Johnson, so that was an interesting thing there. There's President Johnson. Later on, we go off to Vietnam. he said more and more, 1,000,000 people in Vietnam, you know. It was really strange.
Now, you said you worked with the mountain guards?
Yes. Yes, that was in Thailand.
Okay.
There was a whole bunch of different branches. And so they were good for a lot of reasons. They knew the area. They were very, very, they liked us a whole lot. And so and the Thais liked them, the ones that got along with them. Hello, girlie. Hello, girlie. What you doing? What you doing? Huh? Did you wake up? Hmm? She's just 3 months old.
Yeah. Rescue dog.
Yep. She is the rescue dog, but she is. We're just so proud to have her. That Corey was some great mother to all these puppies. I've never seen a litter of 10 dogs be so.
Yeah.
We're just so happy to have her. She comes to work with us every day. Carol. And so forth. So there was 6 of us that had dinner with the King and Queen of Thailand. That was it. There was no bodyguards, no servants, no nothing. The king had been out fishing and caught a great big, huge black tuna on the coast someplace, and we had barbecued, charbroiled tuna with all the trimmings, and we just sat there and talked and talked and talked, and it was the most delightful thing you could ever. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And on my dress uniform, I carry a beautiful gold medallion that he gave us, just the 3 handlers. There was an Army guy, 2 Army guys, one FSC and myself and the other staff sergeant who went with me. But I was the only non-Army guy to go on the TDY trip, and the colonel said, "I'm sending you. I don't have anybody else. You're going." I said, "Well, that's okay with me." And we came back and told some of the stories, and the colonel just sat back, and my Marine colonel boss just laughed. That's the greatest thing I ever heard. And so those first 3 years, 9 months, and 10 days were a pretty exciting time. But I did finish school.
When you were in Vietnam, many USO shows come through.
Oh yeah, I met Bob Hope a couple times, and then years later, I was in Birmingham, Alabama, trying to get to a reception, and so I went up the back stairs because I was late, and they were going up back stairs because they were late too. And I told them the story about we had a loose dog. It wasn't one of mine. I got a couple great stories. He says, you were a Marine, weren't you? I said, yeah, I sure was. And so I used to see him. I lived in Palm Springs for a number of years, 10 years. And so I used to see him every so often. And he'd say, oh, there you are, that dog man. He never remembered my name, but he remembered the dogs. So, yeah, I met Bob Hope and all the fancy girls. But one of the funniest trips I had after I became a kennel NCO, I had these orders, pocket orders. I could travel any place to all of Vietnam, anytime, any place. Didn't matter if we had a dog team that needed assistance. And so that was one of my duties. And so I didn't have a dog team there, but I went all the way down to, way down below Saigon to see my old high school buddy. He got drafted, and we were on the track team together and stuff. And that was the first USO show I ever saw, Filipino one. And he was there drinking beer and eating steaks, and I said, he should have seen how he lived with the beautiful bathrooms. The bathrooms were a big deal because those were almost non-existent, so they had showers and bathrooms. Fancy girls, and oh my gosh.
Did you get to weigh?
Sir?
Did you get to weigh?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Had a little bit of every place. Yeah, I could see the holes where they were blasting through the sides of the citadel. It was amazing. we lost a lot of people there. We lost a lot of people up north.
Now, when did you get your discharge? When did you leave the Marines?
First time was September 9th or 10th, September 10th of 1971.
You say the first time?
Oh yeah, I've spent 34 years in the Marines, so I had a lot of discharges. I was on active duty a lot.
Yeah.
They would send me on these big projects. I don't know how many. I went to Okinawa 20 times, I think, and beyond. I was on a number of I was one of the only people that had ever been to Thailand from the squadron, and so I went to Thailand. I had some other training in the midst of this. In the midst of this, I became an officer. I got a direct commission to be a warrant officer. So I retired as a W-4. I was a E7 and went to combat logistics school with the Navy and Marines down in San Diego, and went to the school and graduated from there. And that stayed with me almost my rest of my career, because when they needed, I was what they call 0430, which was combat logistics. There weren't too many of us, and so I went up the stream of WO ranks fairly quickly. So by the time I had 20 years in, I was already a W4. So
Where were you when the Soviet Union collapsed?
Believe it or not, I was in Russia. I was in Minsk, Belarus, working on a project that I can't mention, but I was in Minsk, and it was incredible, and everybody was dancing and laughing and carrying on. They must have partied for a week. I don't think the neighbors ever, I had an apartment downtown, I don't think those guys ever got sober for about a week or two, I don't remember, but I was in Russia. And then, but before that, I was recalled for Desert Storm. I was in the reserves and was put on active duty at El Toro as to fill the billet as the crash fire rescue officer, believe it or not, during Desert Storm. At one point at El Toro, which is in Orange County, we had 7 commercial 747s parked on the runway at one time. The squadrons were offloading and stripping the buildings to taking the toilet seats off and getting on those airplanes to fly out. And that's the sickest I think I've ever been, other than being wounded a couple times, was I got 26 shots in one day. I had never been sicker. I don't think I had ever been sicker than that. To this day, I don't, they're in my record book, but I have no idea how many of those shots were even necessary, because we were in the second wave. We had everything staged to go. We had to fly on C5A. They didn't have Bs then, but 5s, C5As, because we could roll if we pulled everything down, we could roll the fire trucks right into the aircraft. So we were I had a triple job. I had crash and fire, rescue, and recovery, which involved building temporary airfields. I did that for 10 years. And so we were I had 64 people. I was the OIC of that group, and we were going to build 2 new assault airfields for the Harriers and so forth in the desert. But 3 days later, we weren't going anyplace. And so we had all this gear, it took us, we had these retired people. Oh my God, what a mess.
Were you still in El Toro?
Yes. That
Did you go to the Middle East for Desert Storm?
No. We had orders, we had everything, but it stopped too quick.
Yeah.
We didn't have to do the next step, which they should have done the next step, to be quite honest with you. I don't know how far you got. How far did you go, Joe?
We got to Al-Naziriyah, in southern Iraq, heading up,
Yeah.
and the King of Arabia made a stop.
Yeah.
He didn't want Saddam taken out.
Yeah, well, that was a mistake, as you know. So, we had a grand time. I stayed there for 60-some days. That actually turned into a really good thing because the Navy threw a fit that I wasn't school trained. So I had a really good boss at work. And so he says, "What do you got to do?" I said, "You won't believe it. I got to go to Memphis, Tennessee and become certified." He said, "Well, go to Memphis, Tennessee." I wasn't married or anything at the time, so off I would go to Memphis to get certified. So from then on, for the last 10 years I was in the Marines, it was either I would go as the advisor for the logistics or the advisor for the. So I went all over the place, but it was good. It was good. So I retired 1 May 2001, and 9/11 happened right after that. So I was working for Amazon.com in Coffeyville.
When did you come to Bartlesville?
Shortly after. And I came to Bartlesville in 2003. We've had the business.
Why'd you come here?
You're looking at it. Our business. I bought the business.
You make signs and
Yeah.
posters.
Everything.
Yeah.
Banners. We've done about everything. Wraps, everything. We've had it 15 years.
Would you join the Marines again?
Sure. But I don't want my son in the Marines. I'd go, but I have a 19-year-old son
Yeah.
who's starting OU, as I told you. No.
I like to do a word association. I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction.
All right.
First one is boot camp.
Stand on the yellow footprints.
Camp Pendleton.
Home, semi-home.
Vietnam.
How I made it home, I don't know.
Monkey Mountain.
Oh, pleasure.
Oklahoma Hill.
Almost didn't make it home from Oklahoma Hills.
Ho Chi Minh.
He wasn't my uncle.
Lyndon Johnson.
Shook his hand, took his picture. To this day, I was a very good photographer. Well, that was the other thing. High school was a yearbook and all sorts of things. Yeah, I took his picture. We played for him at the last moment. We were close enough to the O'Hare Field. We grabbed the band and the marching band, and we went. And I was the official school photographer. I went, and of all the people, I was the only one that got to meet Lady Bird, and he just wanted to talk. Never knew I would he'd be my boss,
Thailand.
Heaven.
Richard Nixon.
Disappointed.
How do you want to be remembered?
This is a darn good dog handler.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think I did. I talked too much.
Well, this is an excellent interview. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview. And again, this is July 10th, 2018. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Jim Reali in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.
You're welcome.